Today, new security concerns after multiple drones were reportedly detected above a Washington Army base that houses some of the Pentagon's most senior officials. 3 people briefed on the situation tell the Washington Post it happened over Fort McNair. That's also home to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. It's unclear where the drones came from, and the Pentagon declined to discuss the Post's report. Let's bring in one of the reporters on that story, Isaac Arnsdorf. Here in studio, MS Now senior national security reporter David Rhodes. So, Isaac, what more can you tell us about these drones?
Well, importantly, the administration has not determined what they are, where they came from, or what threat they posed. But obviously, they were detected because of this higher threat environment, this elevated state of alert that the military has on because of the war in Iran. And very concerningly, they look similar to drones that appeared around other U.S. officials in the past who Iran has wanted to kill in retaliation for a previous strike against Iran that killed one of their generals in 2020. So for people who remember the 2024 Trump campaign and some of the threats to former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, Iran has this track record of wanting to assassinate U.S. officials who they hold responsible.
So, David, how concerned are American officials right now about potential Iranian retaliation here in the U.S.?
There are concerns because Joe Kent, who's the head of the National Counterterrorism Center, just resigned. That post is empty. And it's a variety of things. It could be these drones. And Isaac's right. It was a great story. There's so little regulation or understanding of the drones that are in the air in this country. There was all those things in New Jersey about a year ago. But it's not clear. Other threats would be more of a homegrown attack. The terrible attack on the synagogue with the children, the attempt in Michigan that happened last week. There was also the incident in Virginia where one person was killed by someone who had previously been convicted of supporting ISIS. So that's the sort of lone wolf thing where someone's inspired to take action. There's less concerns about a cell, some kind of organized group in the United States that's going to carry out an attack. So it's a wide variety of things, but they are on the lookout and are very concerned about what could happen.
And Isaac, Fort McNair is very close to both Capitol Hill and the White House, but you note that it doesn't have the same safety buffer as other bases. What are you hearing about potential efforts to boost security there now?
So we were told that there were increased security measures put into place after these drone sightings. There was a meeting at the White House about other possible responses. There was a discussion about whether the secretaries who are living there need to move, and they decided not to.
So, David, in the last hour, President Trump also confirmed your reporting that the administration is requesting an additional $200 billion for Iran war funding. Secretary Hegseth was asked about that funding earlier today, and here's what he said.
I think that number could move, obviously. It takes money to kill bad guys. So we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future, ensure that our ammunition is everything's refilled, and not just refilled, but above and beyond. I mean, President Trump, as he said, rebuilt the military in his first term, didn't think he'd use it as dynamically in his second, but he had. So thank goodness he did that.
It takes money to kill bad guys, not exactly specific, although the president said today, among other things, that the U.S. has an unlimited supply of upper and middle armaments. So what do we know about this? Tell us more about your reporting and what you make of Hegseth's response.
And I first want to credit the Washington Post. They had the first thing on this number, but yes, 2 other officials confirmed it to me. There isn't an unlimited supply of weapons. The problem is that we've used so many of these expensive interceptor missiles to try to shoot down these Iranian drones. We've used a lot of these sophisticated drone bombs like the Tomahawk missiles. And this is really most of the money, the $200 billion, would go to replenishing those munitions. And then the president, though, was striking, and we just quickly talked about this earlier. Over the course of this morning, I've heard a different explanation for what the objectives are by the Trump administration from Defense Secretary Hegseth, Director of National Intelligence Gabbard, the Commerce Secretary Scott Bessent, and then the president himself. Hegseth said it's to eliminate Iran ever having a nuclear weapon. Gabbard doesn't even mention that thing. Bessent talks about somehow lifting sanctions on Iranian oil and stopping it from going to China. I don't know if he's going to seize that oil. And then the president himself says, yes, $200 billion but no boots on the ground. And just as the first segment showed, it's critical to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And I've been speaking to military experts. You need ground troops to do that. You need them to somehow take control of the coastline there in Iran and stop the Iranians from firing drones at ships.
And you need them to continue to hold it, right?
Correct. And so, look, it's very hard to run any administration, but this morning has not been the clearest from this administration in terms of the objectives, what it's going to cost, and when will this end.
David Rohde, Isaac Arnsdorf with his great reporting as well. Thank you both.